Hey guys, this is Mark with Nothing to Doubt. This is really my first time doing this on video, but I wanted to record myself just to get some things off my chest, and hopefully this resonates with some people. If it doesn't, then and it's only for me, then that's perfectly fine as well. Because I'm sure my future self will look back on this video and hopefully laugh at some things. And hopefully by then, we'll be in a different world as a humanity, as a society. And so I wanted to talk about a subject dealing with the awakening of humanity, the awakening of planet Earth from what can only be described for as long as our recorded history really as a coma, as a deep comatose state in which we believe that we're the only ones here. We're the pinnacle of intelligent life in this universe, in this chaotic universe, that we came out of nothing and we're destined to go back into nothing. There is no intelligence to this universe and there is no purpose. And that's something that humanity has been misled for many millennia. Because we live on a planet, I'm sure that many people, hopefully at least a couple who watch this video, can resonate with this sort of insanity that we grow up with in this society. I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, filled with consumerism, filled with this sort of assembly line process of going through the education system, being indoctrinated with certain ideas, made to follow orders, to memorize, to obey, to get a good job. Well, first get a good degree and then get a good job. Try to make as much money as you can. Hopefully find a partner, find a good house, and work for a corporation that you don't care about. And to me, this is a byproduct of an insane society when we go through this assembly line process. And never once as a society do we really stop to question, stop to look within and question within ourselves. Why are we doing this? Why are we here in the first place? What is our purpose on planet Earth? And of course, any talk of that question has kind of been saved for religions, which organized religion, which really distorts those questions and turn it into something about judgment, turning it into something about being either rewarded or punished, which really isn't what living on this planet is all about. And so we've been purposely distracted as a species for as long as written history, really. We don't even know if our history is correct, but we've been distracted not only through our media, but also through the news, the mainstream media, television, sports, video games, entertainment, social media, just scrolling through the next thing and the next thing. We've been in this sort of ego consciousness. And that's really reflected in our society at large, because the ego just wants to, it wants to feel separated from other people. And it does whatever it can to strengthen this sort of separation of itself from others. And no matter what, it will always try to find one problem after another to distract you from the inner truth of your soul, of what we're really doing here on this planet, which most of us, at least our society at large, it doesn't encourage us to question. In fact, we stray away from the concept of death, even though it's something that's inevitable. And we live in this planet, this materialistic society, trying to get more and more things, and we don't even know as a species. We don't even question what happens when we die. We don't even know anything about our larger reality, and I think that's purposely kept from us, and I think it purposely has been for quite some time. So we go along this process without connecting to our soul, and that's why, as long as we don't connect to our soul, to our inner soul, as long as we believe in the narrative and the agendas, that's the only way that could be described, that's pushed upon us by the media, then we will forever remain in a sort of coma, a comatose state, a sort of a slumber to ourselves, not only to our larger reality, but who we really are within ourselves. Most of us don't question. And today is March 23rd, 2022. And I think that it's long past time for the people of Earth to collectively awaken. But first, we need to go through a period of darkness, which is really what's been happening for the past couple of years. We've kind of went through an initiation. In a way, there's a silver lining to all of it, because I think more people have had more time to be at home, to connect within themselves, or to research, to receive information that's not in line with what the narrative is pushing upon us daily within these mainstream news outlets. And I've been receiving lots of dreams and visions over the past couple months. Lots of experiences in astral projection, lots of channeled information, let's just say, where I connect with what can only be described as my star family. Family from another lifetimes, family from other worlds, deeply connected to our soul. You know, this corresponds to a concept that Plato talked about called anamnesis. Anamnesis is a concept that the soul is omniscient at some level. Now, this goes beneath the ego. This goes into a direct divine knowing, as he called, within the soul that you could connect with, and you could receive information, you could receive downloads, you could receive through dreams often as well, and through visions, through synchronicities. You'll start to notice all of this as you gradually awaken. And once you connect with that inner knowing, that sort of omniscience, that connection to God or universal consciousness within you, you start to see through all of the BS narratives that are pushed upon us by society, by our collective ego, constantly going from one problem to another, spreading fear, propaganda. And what happens in this process is that humanity, without connecting to their soul, they just go along with whatever the narrative, whatever the media sources outside of them are currently pushing upon us, with this very thin slice of manipulated information. And from this very thin layer of manipulated information, they form a construct in their ego. They form an opinion, judgments from their ego that if anyone else comes along with different information, they're going to react in a certain way. They're going to get triggered, and often they don't even know why. But it's because the ego has a very limited perspective on the world, from which we form these concepts and opinions from a very limited slice of manipulated information that we've received from the media, without connecting within and knowing that really all the information we need is within us. If we go within, we could receive an untold amount of knowing, of direct knowing, and it's very hard to explain to people that it's not really belief systems we're dealing with once we go within, once we connect to our soul, connect to that larger reality, that aspect of ourselves, that higher aspect. It's a knowing, and it comes through many different sources, but there are divine sources nonetheless, through vision, synchronicity, even telepathic contact with beings, with your star family. And I know that certain people who know their soul is not from here could relate to this message. And I won't go too deeply into that, but I have had contact over the past few weeks, especially, particularly, and over the past few years in a more general sense. But over the past few weeks, what I've been being told is that our world is going to change dramatically, very soon. Possibly, as of right now, I believe it's the 23rd, possibly over the next few days, possibly over the next few weeks, definitely within the next few months, our world is going to change. Big revelations are going to come out onto humanity. If these dreams and visions and contacts are saying anything, it's that what we're experiencing right now is nothing more than a movie. We're each playing roles. But eventually we're going to have to wake up to the fact that this is a movie. We're going to have to break character. And we're going to have to see things for what they really are. And there's going to be some dark stuff that's going to come out. False idols are going to fall. Politicians, celebrities. But this is what needs to happen. The darkness needs to expose itself. The light, as the light comes in, as we move into this, some call it an ascension, the darkness will expose itself. It's an inevitability, and the truth is also an inevitability, that the truth will be exposed. And the biggest truth of them all, let's say the biggest lie, is that we are mortal, limited beings living a purposeless life on this planet. And that's what they don't want us to know, that is just a lie, that we come here with a purpose, that we're not just here to consume and to make as much money as we can before we die. Because you know what? Once we are all activated with that knowing, there's nothing that could stop us. And I know that for a fact. And once that happens, we're going to turn off the media, the mainstream media. We're going to know how corrupt things really have been. And again, there's going to be some dark stuff that's going to come out. Some really dark stuff. I'll probably look at this in the future. And it's going to be hard for a lot of people to accept it. But you just got to be loving with them. You just got to be as loving with them as possible. You can't be, I told you so about it. And you know, there's lots of different areas in which I can be, I told you so, have that mindset to certain people. But again, that's coming from the ego. And it's tough because certain people, you try to talk to them about certain things that are more not as hard to accept, such as 3 buildings falling at free fall acceleration, hit by 2 planes, calling that into question, and even then people get triggered. But the manipulation that's happened over the past millennia, and I'm talking about millennia, is a lot more than that. It's an entire web of deception. But luckily, we live in a universe of balanced polarity, and as much darkness as there is, as much of this deception, there's also as much light that's coming in and helping us through this process. And I know this for a fact. And what they've been telling me is that they're coming. They're going to reveal themselves. That's their plan. And they said that it's going to be good. It's going to be very beneficial for ourselves and for our governments. I mean, of course, eventually in our evolution, as we grow in consciousness and have a foundation of love, which is self-organizing, self-regulating, there won't be a need for any more oppressive governmental systems. For now, I think we need some sort of organized control, but as we gradually awaken, that'll start to dissipate. And as we gradually awaken, we'll look within ourselves for answers without having to turn on the TV and turn on CNN. You know, that corresponds to another Platonic concept, that the knowledge that you have corresponds to the dimension in which you receive it from. If you receive it from this, it can only be called a 3D matrix, then the quality of your knowledge is going to be very lacking, very limited, coming from the ego. But if you receive it from the divine knowing, the anamnesis, the divine remembrance, because life is a concept of remembering what you already know deep within. If you connect to your larger soul and to your star family, your soul family, whatever you want to call it, then you're bound to see the world the way it really is. And this might sound a bit arrogant to a few, but actually this is coming from a place of pure humility. Because in order to gain true knowledge, the foundation it must rest upon is a place in which we know that our whole lives we've been growing up in an insane society, as I mentioned earlier, and that we really, truly know nothing. And once we accept that the years that we've been on this planet, we've been so manipulated and we really know nothing. This comes from the ego. The ego knows nothing, and that's where we have been indoctrinated to filter our information. Once we accept that, then on that foundation, only on that foundation, once we discard everything we once knew, can true knowledge, a foundation of true knowledge, begin. A divine knowing and a connection within yourself to something greater. And so I just want to tell everybody, whoever's watching this, even if it's just me, even if it's just my future self, just to turn off the TV, because there's going to be a lot of revelations. There's going to be a lot of stuff. But if you stay grounded within yourself, you'll know that everything is going to be fine. Everything is going according to a plan. And we're going to meet our larger galactic family. But first, we have to go within ourselves and meet our own soul. And I can't emphasize this enough. We have to know thyself, truly know thyself, and come from this place of divine wisdom, of divine inner knowing, of divine remembrance, where we connect to that part of ourselves that connected to all knowledge, not only connected to all knowledge, but connected to everyone and everything. That leads us to a place of unconditional love. So no matter what happens, just realize that no matter what, we are all one. We are even one with the darkness. And that's how we transmute it. So as much darkness is going to come out in the coming days, weeks, months, it's going to lead us into a whole new age, as was spoken about in the most ancient spiritual traditions. It's going to lead us into a golden age of humanity, And this is also something that I and many others have seen. And no matter how worried your mind is when these things come out, try not to see with your mind, but try to see with your heart and feel what's really happening. Feel that the consciousness of Earth is being uplifted, and that's why this darkness needs to first be exposed. So I think that's all I need to say for now. There's lots of other things that I could touch on, but it was just nice to get that off my chest. And hopefully I look at this in the future and we'll be in a totally different world. Stay in love and stay in light and connect within yourself. Discern with your heart and not with your mind. And I'll leave you with this.